Hello, and welcome to the Wonder Woman series of the Maker Mom podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I am your host. Every week, I bring you 2 interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds, some of them parents, some of them not. This week's Wonder Woman series guest is Larissa of Lohr Woodworking in or near Philadelphia. I've been following Larissa for a little while, and I was actually surprised learning all the parts about her journey into woodworking. And so I think it's a really great story, and I know you're going to enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. Before we hop on into the interview, though, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Christy, Twisted Twine Woodworking, Christina B, Jeremy Speece, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Lauren, Rasfile Designs, Sven, Dwarf Size Workshop, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Toolmom Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly Reclaim Living Store, Brandy Studio Obey, Kathy One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen Little Bear Furniture, Ethan Carter Designs. So thank you all so very much for your continued ongoing support, helping me to produce 2 episodes a week every month. With no further ado, here is Larissa of Lohr Woodworking. All right, well, I'm going to let you then introduce yourself, tell people who you are. So Go ahead when you are ready.
All right. I am Larissa Huff, part owner of Lohr Woodworking. I live in Philadelphia, but our shop is in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania. I've been woodworking, making furniture for going on like 9 years, I guess now. And I was once a math teacher, took an abrupt turn into woodworking and never really looked back.
Honestly, I can actually see that connection there from math to woodworking. Like there's a lot of math.
Jump.
Yeah, there's a lot of math in woodworking. So part owner, who's the other owner?
So Jeff Lohr, the namesake of the business, built the shop on his own property. And has had like 20 something apprentices over the years. And me and Rob is my co-owner. We were his last apprentices. And when he retired, he handed the business over to us. So now we teach all our classes, make our furniture. It's kind of a collaboration most of the time. And yeah, so I guess Jeff still owns part of the business as he should. Okay. But me and Rob run all the operations and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. So with COVID, are you able to like get into the shop right now?
With COVID.
Yes.
Yes, we are. We were shut down for a while. But me and Rob have kind of bubbled ourselves, like our families. I live with my fiance and no one else. And he works for himself. And then Rob's family is pretty small. So the 2 of us feel comfortable working together. And we have been running classes since the state says that we can, but with a smaller number of people and a bunch of COVID protocol. So we're operating, but a little bit differently, I think, like everyone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get too much down that journey of woodworking, I want to go back to your childhood a little ways. And where'd you grow up? What kind of things were you interested in as a kid?
I was in Massachusetts until I was 12. My mom was a single mom, and she went back to college and became an accountant all during my childhood. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, which I was super lucky to do. And my mom was like a huge role model. She was busting her butt to make sure that we had a good life. She bought her first house and all these crazy things in my childhood. And then she got engaged when I was 12 and he lived in Florida. So we moved to Florida, which was a whole other adventure.
Yeah, that seems like worlds apart between the culture around Massachusetts and the culture around Florida.
Yeah, like to the utmost degree. Yeah. So I lived there through college and then moved to Philly a year after I graduated college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since you, in your intro, you said you were a math teacher, is that what you went to school for then, college?
Yeah, I was a secondary mathematics education major at Florida State University. There was like 12 of us. Nobody wants to be a math teacher. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I really thought that was my plan. I moved to Philly fully planning on getting certified to teach in Pennsylvania. That was always the plan. But I answered a Craigslist ad and that all changed.
Really? Okay, now you have to explain.
So when I first moved here, I was teaching SAT prep and studying to take the test to get certified in Pennsylvania. And I needed more income. So I was looking for other teaching jobs, mostly in like crafty things, like kids' art classes and stuff like that. And Jeff was advertising for a woodworking apprentice / teaching assistant. And I have never done any woodworking at this point. Oh, no tools, have never done anything even close to it. And I completely on a whim was like, well, that sounds kind of cool. And applied, and that's that.
Wow. What I have to add, like, I mean, you had no experience, and so you're going to go into this, like, you applied. I'm assuming there's an interview. Like, you're going into this process, like, are you just like BSing your way through it, or are
That's
you
a great
like...
question. That's a great question. I am a terrible BSer, so no, luckily that was not required. He wanted someone with no experience so that he could train them from the ground up, which is a bold move for any like mentor to take. But he also wanted someone who could handle like the internet. So he wanted someone to write a blog and get him some social media accounts. And of course, as a millennial, I was like born for that. So I had also always done, like, you can tell from behind me, like weird crafty things, like 3D paper things. And I did photography briefly, but none of it ever really like stuck in a real way. So I thought maybe this like union of what seems to be practical and functional and math-based, but also a little bit artsy. And I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I do this and it turns out to be weird and terrible, and then I don't do it. But it was like from the first day, my first 8-hour day, I was like, this is it.
So yeah, I was gonna say you took a chance and applied for it and everything to be like side work, right? I mean, your intent was like to bring in extra money, and then because you were doing all these other things. So that first day, did you just like in an instant pivot and this was it? You're going full in?
Well, in my brain, yes. But at that point, I had only been hired to work like 2 days a week. So, because apprentices actually cost your business money, which I'm sure is a surprise to no one. So I was working like 2 or 3 days a week, and then I still taught SAT prep. And then he could tell that I was like really in it, and he let me stay at night and work on my own stuff, and come in on the weekends and work on my own stuff, and kind of like suss out my own experiments. And then it got to the point where he was like, all right, you've been here for 90 days. So you either have to commit to 2 years, because that's how long it takes for an apprentice to earn money for the business, or this is it. And I was like, I'm in
it. Awesome.
And I'm still in it.
You're still in it. So this really has me like intrigued. I have to ask, like, what does he start you doing as
That's a
somebody
great
who's
question.
never like done this before?
Well, he's like every like old school woodworking mentor. He's a character in like the best way. And so he's had 20 apprentices before me. He's no fear being like, do this thing, and if you mess it up, we'll fix it. So my first day, they were building some sort of like floor cabinet, and they had me with a coping saw cutting out like tenons. I didn't know what any of the words were. They just like hand me this saw, and they're like, you probably can't hurt yourself with this saw. Like, you really have to try. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty brave. Like somewhat on his side, because I would say like I had an apprentice for a brief amount of time, and I was like, "You're sanding. That's all I got you doing right now is you're sanding."
I mean, I did a lot of that too. I did a lot of go for work, like go get me that wrench, go get me that thing. A lot of like just laying stuff out so that he could then do the operation. Yeah, there was a lot of like normal apprentice work, but our school, like the classes that we teach, the practical woodworking class is like an intensive, and in my first month, he like made me a student basically in that class, so I could get like a mega dose of the baseline, and then at least I knew how to like use a table saw safely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so it's both school, and then he was making custom furniture that you were assisting with, type thing.
Yeah.
And then you guys have kept that model since taking over.
Yeah. We try to maintain like a 50% school, 50% furniture, but every year is a little different, depending on how the economy is or what's going on. But
what's the style of furniture that you guys make and teach?
Jeff did like, he has a very distinct style. He did like a refined arts and crafts vibe. So a lot of green and green, Macintosh, like piercing cutouts and like buttons on every joint. So that's how I learned building his style. And then since me and Rob have taken over like 3-ish years, we've been kind of spending a lot of time making spec pieces, figuring out what Larissa and Rob collaborations look like. So we've taken a lot of the arts and crafts ethos. So like exposed joinery, taking pride in like design, announcing how these things are put together, but taking influence from a lot of other things, kind of figuring out, I'd say it's a little bit more modern than your traditional arts and crafts, what's coming out of us. A lot of more like curves, bent wood, stuff like that. So I guess I don't really know the answer. We're figuring it out.
You're figuring it out. Well, I guess like what's that process like for you? I mean, would you say you have like a set style just personally coming into this that, is something you've always been drawn to, or is this really like just a let's throw noodles at the wall and see what sticks?
Kind of both. I do a lot of like research, a lot of looking around, going to museums, trying to get influence from everywhere, because I still consider myself very, very new to this, even though I'm 9 years in. So I am a big fan of like simple designs. I do really like seeing the joinery. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I have, like, my house is decorated in like mid-century stuff, but I'm not sure that I want to make that. I like looking at it, and I've built stuff for the house, of course, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So how does, this totally selfish question here. How do you make that business work? How do you make a business of like making furniture and teaching classes? Like, how does that continue to support? I mean, you're supporting 2 households, right?
We have, me and Rob are the only full-time. We have Jeff, he teaches the first day of all of our classes. And then we have 2 part-timers. So How we do it, I don't know. A lot of luck. No, I mean, Jeff opened Lohr Woodworking Incorporated in 1991, and the school opened in 2001. So I owe a huge debt to him for building a foundation. I inherited a business that was functioning already. So I am like, all of it goes to him, but it sustains the school, basically pays the bills, and then the furniture is like our selfish thing that we love. I mean, we love teaching too, but the furniture is like the passion. And we'll get, on a good year, we'll get 10 commissions. On a slow year, we'll get 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of just hope for the best. We're trying to market a little bit better. That's a new development for us. So I know a lot of your guests are like very established on social media. I am not that person.
Not that person. You just started out talking about you were millennial though. So you were like born for this, right?
I know. I was born to know how to use it, but I am terrible at like using it as a tool. I can like post photos of, I don't know, things that look nice, I guess, but I don't know how to get people to care about it.
I'm with you there. I am definitely with you there. Yeah. Well, so you started woodworking with no experience, but even that is a totally different skill set than running a business. Like,
yeah,
that is a whole other
that's true
skill set.
That's very true.
So like when you're apprenticing, I mean, was Jeff like showing you kind of like behind the curtain as far as like the business aspect of it as well?
He was always like super transparent, because like the arrangement of it's not a compound, but it might as well be. It's a 13-acre farm, and Jeff's house is like 50 yards away from the shop.
Gotcha.
And so it's a very intimate, like family business vibe. So he was always very transparent about like, this year's been a great year, so we get bonuses. This year's been terrible, so we need to work on this,
Right.
My mom is also an accountant. So when he started like thinking about handing over the books, I was like, I can do this. And I have someone on call to answer questions if I'm like confused. So, I mean, it's a lot of open communication. It's a lot of like, Jeff, what problems have you seen that I should be ready for? What successes have you seen? What does this normally cost per year? I don't know. But since it is like a pretty small situation, it's self-sustaining at the very least, knock on wood.
Right.
And some years have been like super great. So
how does commission work find you?
We sometimes it's just chance and they cold call us. So I don't know. But we do like craft shows.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably do like 2 or 3 a year. Usually the ACC show in Baltimore. We're doing the PMA show next weekend. So we'll try to like put our face in front of people who are actively trying to consume, craft. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, some of our students are very kind and leave and go tell their friends that they should hire us to make stuff.
So you said you and Rob were the last 2 apprentices. What do you think it was? I mean, what do you feel it is about like the combination of the 2 of you to work together, to run the school, to do the commission work?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to. I should ask Jeff. I think it was a combination of like he's 10 years older than me. He's got 2 kids. He's a very like established human person. And when I walked in, I was not that. So I think that like we grew a partnership in a way that he was like confident in his building and his design work. And I came in just like excited. And then it shook out to be that he is really good at like the customer relation, like that kind of stuff. And I'm really good at keeping the business monetarily afloat. And then the design work is where we come in 50-50. And that's like the fun part.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've talked kind of like, I've been in maker spaces where there's conferences where there's a bunch of us and you can just feel that vibe of excitement and working off of each other and like coming up with new ideas as far as like processes or how to. But I have never been in a space where it's like I'm actually designing a piece with somebody. I would say I get pretty selfish over that. Like,
that's fair.
and in the sense of like most of the time it stays in my head, right? I'm not one of those people who's really good at putting it on paper or on the computer before approaching actually doing it. So how does that design process work for you anyways with another person involved?
Well, we've both made our fair share of like solo work, and we still do if there's time, or we have an idea that doesn't necessarily like fit under the Lohr umbrella. Mm-hmm. We'll just, make our own thing. I mean, nobody's trying to hold anybody to any, I don't know, promises or I don't know. But I think it usually starts with one of us having, like, we'll agree on what we're making. For instance, we currently are making almost like a Krenov inspired cabinet on a stand. And it started because we teach a class called Cabinet and Veneer Work. And we made the cabinet as a teaching vessel. And we've always wondered, like, we could make this so much cooler. And so we just sat down one day and Rob was like, I like those Krenov cabinets on a stand. And I was like, great. I really want to curve the front of something. So then I have to figure out how to bend the door parts. And he was like, great, let's do those two things. And then as we go through it, one of us will have an idea. The other one will be like, I think that would look a little weird. Or it sounds great. Or that's all you figure it out and we'll meet back.
Yeah. Okay. What projects do you like to do solo? Like what's some of the stuff that you kind of really go after?
I've been finding any excuse to hot pipe bend stuff lately. Like all I want to do. So I've been just making up projects that I can integrate that into. And that's usually how it goes. Like I'll try a new technique and be really into it for like 6 months and I'll build something just to incorporate it. But I'm a big fan of like cabinets, things with doors and drawers. I like making secret compartments and stuff. It's like my go-to move.
I've always wanted to, but I have never pulled off the secret compartment thing. Like that's always been.
Do it.
I know it's like one of those.
So satisfying.
I'm trying. Well, I get stuck on the how, right? On the how to like make that happen, especially with the type of work I do. But like I so badly want to do like a secret compartment in a carved table, like a carved log table, because I'm like that would just be so unexpected and like cool,
that would be like a true surprise.
I know, but it's like how that I get stuck on the like how do I make that work? Like even right now I'm mulling over. I have some ideas on it wouldn't be secret, but just even like incorporating a drawer into a log, a carved log table. And it's like, cause there again, that's not something that's like done, right? It's not, you don't see drawers happening and that stuff.
True.
So it's one of those things like, I'm kind of like, I have some wood that I would not be upset like if it doesn't work out, if that makes sense. Like
that's key. No, that's important.
It's like, okay, that stuff would lend itself perfectly to it. And if the drawer part didn't work out, I could still probably salvage it into something. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I think it's a fascination. It's the same thing of like, I've seen people who just make like intricate pieces of furniture that incorporate like mechanical aspects to them. Those always like super intrigue me. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like, I want to be able to do that. I just have never.
I agree. I like normally my secret compartments are like I also was very nervous about the, like, how do you do it? So it started with like the false back to a drawer, and then you just flip the thing down and pull it out a little further, like very simple ones. And my most difficult was like a button that you push that kicks a drawer out. And that was the first time I got into like mechanical things, and that made me feel like, all right, like it's intimidating, but it's just a little, it's like willing to sacrifice a couple of weeks of your life making something work.
So like, okay, so yeah, that exact thing. Like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I was totally influenced by the movie National Treasure and watching like
Excellent.
the like hit the button in the desk and like the like code and it all popped out, right?
Yeah.
I so want to do that. But it's like,
Yeah.
so with your button thing, like how do you even go about trying to figure that out? I mean, do you know somebody? Do you have a secret weapon, like a phone a friend that we all need to know?
I wish. I would tell everyone. No, that one, in the arts and crafts furniture, Jeff has buttons all over everything. And I always wondered, like, in his Morris chairs, there's like 3 buttons on the arm. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you could like press that and it turned your TV on or something crazy? And then this was like probably one of the last arts and crafts obvious pieces that we made. And I was like, I'm gonna make one of these buttons work. So I just cut like the mortise all the way through, and I was like, all right, from here I at least have a channel so I can figure out like the rest of it. And if not, then we'll just glue a button in there and it's like it never happened.
Yeah,
pretty low stakes.
Pretty low stakes, but I'm guessing it worked.
It did. It has been functioning for like 3 years now.
Nice.
So
is this something like at the school or in your home, or?
It's in our showroom. So we have like on site, we have like a little room that we keep our spec pieces safe, I guess. And that is where it is.
Hey makers, do you know Lauren of Rasp and File Designs? Well, if you don't, you should definitely go check out her work. You can find her on Instagram, Rasp File Designs. Lauren is making all kinds of cool furniture and home decor pieces out of live edge hardwoods and metal bases. That's not all she does though, so you should really go check her out and see what she's up to, especially as holiday seasons are coming up. And I know all of us makers really enjoy making our own Christmas presents, but perhaps you're running out of time, so you want to maybe go check out Lauren. She's in the DC area, so especially those who are close location-wise to her. So go ahead, go check her out at Rasp File Designs on Instagram, and let's get back to the episode. Hey makers! Today's episode is brought to you by Tool Mom and Company, or some of you know her as Tool Mom Bonnie. She has all kinds of tool-related merchandise of gifts and clothing for all ages and genders available at toolmomstore.com. I have 2 of the coffee mugs. One says Go Girl, and it has a circular saw with flames coming off the back, which is super sweet. And then the other one is the definition of a tool chick, which just makes you feel kind of badass when you're drinking out of it. So if you are in the market, especially as we're getting close to Christmas, for any tool-related merchandise, be that gifts or clothing, make sure you head on over to toolmomstore.com. And extra bonus, you can receive 20% off at checkout if you use the coupon code MAKERMOM. All right, let's jump back into the episode.
Yeah.
Is it something, I mean, so if you've got that like showroom spec piece stuff, is that more like, do you guys get foot traffic if you're out in the middle of an acreage, or is it like you're bringing potential clients there to show kind of?
More of that. Yeah, we don't have much foot traffic, but people will call and ask if we can make something, and we'll say, you should just, if you're nearby, you should come just see what we make and see if we are even in the realm of like what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly, I mean, we take all our stuff to these shows, and in the in-between, we don't have any like place to keep it. So it's also a very fancy storage unit.
I understand that too. Okay, when you say shows and when you said craft show earlier, like is it craft furniture, craftsman type style, like, or is it like holiday craft show? Like, what
It's
are you talking when you're saying craft show?
the ones that we apply for are juried fine art craft shows.
Okay.
So they have exhibitors from all over the country, if not all over the world, and they're like high end craft. So there's jewelry, there's ceramics, there's all kinds of actual craft in the building, but it's usually like it's not your popsicle stick style craft show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, so juried, you have to apply, you have to submit stuff to get approved to enter in. And is it you're bringing spec pieces there to say these are things we could build for you and trying to get like the custom orders or commission pieces, or is it you're going and like this item is for sale, please buy it so we don't have to ship it back home?
Both, 100% both. It is everything in the booth is for sale, including the booth. You want the booth? We will sell it to you. But it's like it's rare that we sell like a big ticket item off the floor at a craft show. It happens, but it's rare. It's usually just people will see it and say, all right, these people would make like a cool desk for me. Or sign up for a class or whatever we can offer that suits your needs.
Gotcha. So what type of people are coming through? Is it like just an individual consumer type person, or are you getting any like collectors or, interior designers? Like what kind of people are coming through?
It depends on the show. Usually all of the above. Usually the people that stop and talk to us are just individuals trying to fill their house with handmade things. But occasionally you'll get an interior designer or someone trying to get like wholesale things in motion. Sometimes you'll get collectors, but yeah, it's a mixed bag. It depends on the place, depends on the year, depends on a lot of things.
What price range are you guys in at those shows? For what you have. So like when you said it's not necessarily typical for someone to buy a big ticket item like at the show. So I mean, honestly, that's generally why I have stayed away from like that type of like art show, craft show type thing, is because I'm like, who's coming to these things expecting to buy like an end table? Not very many people.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
We have we've had shows where we've sold $25,000 worth of stuff off the floor. And then we've had shows where you don't sell anything at all, and then you get an email 6 months later, someone like rediscovered your card. And they are then like, oh, we talked about a bed, and then like maybe something will come of that. But there are also people who are like professional craft show showers, right? And they go to like crazy numbers every year, 12, 18, 20 shows a year, which is bonkers to me. And like, I admire that. And they know a lot more about how to hustle in that environment than I do. But it's a very interesting like circuit to be a part of. We've made a lot of friends, like fellow makers in that circuit. So it's been rewarding whether we sell $25,000 worth of stuff or not.
Well, and it's long hours too, right? I mean, it's a long weekend usually when you're doing something like that.
And it's not cheap. It's not like nothing about it is easy. Like the PMA craft show is happening the 6th, 7th, and 8th of this month, and they're going virtual because and we were discussing like, I wonder what a virtual show is going to be like. Like, we're going to be at the shop ready to Zoom, ready to host like in-person visitors if they want. But it's going to be very different because craft shows are like, people want to touch stuff and they want to like open drawers. So we were like, I wonder what that's going to be like, but also like kind of glad we didn't have to pack up all the furniture and set up a booth and like move into a convention center. Right. So I don't know. Only time will tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, usually, I mean, non-COVID times, what is that? What's that like? I mean, can you kind of just walk through, like, you've got that a 3-day show coming up? What do you have? What goes into that?
Yeah. It's like we make it a big event because we only do 2 or 3 a year. So, and we do them usually within like a 3-hour drive of us. So we're not like, I don't know, we're not big timers, but we will shut down the shop for the week before and clear all the benches out and set up our booth in the shop and then decide what we're going to bring with us and see it all in front of us before we go. Usually we try to make at least one new piece for each show that we go to. And usually we're still working on it until like the day before.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, so even though we talk about it for the year out, like we're going to make this jewelry cabinet. And then it's still like 6 hours before we pack up the truck and we're like, last go to finish. Gonna make it. We're gonna make it. But yeah, we load up either like a Sprinter van or we have a pickup truck with a trailer. Load it, like wrap everything, load it in, drive wherever we're going. Usually have a designated unload time. So we'll drive into whatever convention center it happens to be, unload everything into a pile in a 10 by 10 square, and then pull the truck out, eat some food, and like settle in for a 6-hour setup. Put the walls up, put the rug down, unpack furniture, put the lights up, pull out all the business cards.
So that's your space. You're working with a 10-foot by 10-foot booth space usually?
We try to get 10 by 15 because furniture is bigger, but your traditional booth size is 10 by 10. Yeah.
Yeah. That just sounds tiring.
It is. It is. But it's also like the setup and the breakdown is just all of the craft people just like messing around. So like we're stressed and we're like a little tired, but you're also like hanging out, talking to people about how the show went and like getting to know people, meeting people you haven't met before. Like making last sales are usually 2 fellow makers. Like we'll walk around and as they're packing up, I'll be like, oh, I really like that vase. And it's fun. It's exhausting, but it's really fun.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you said, time will tell this year, right? How the virtual one goes and how that works. I might have to message you after this weekend and just be like, how'd it go?
Hopefully I will say it was great.
So in that space, in the craft space, in the shop, just out of curiosity, how many female apprentices did Jeff ever have?
I think I was the second or third.
Okay.
So ratio way off. But I think that it wasn't, he was very willing, like not that he shouldn't be, but
yeah,
he seemed unfazed by the fact that I was a woman. So I don't think that it was because of that. I think it was a lack of like applicants for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. What about with your guys' classes? Like, do you see a fair amount of women come through?
It's actually very, I'm sure I observe it more than anyone else who works with us, but since I started working there in 2012, I've seen a steady incline. And I don't know if that's just because we're operating in a world where women are more interested in trade, or if it's because they see our website and see a woman instructor and feel like it's a safe space for them to come learn. I'm not sure, but it's been very exciting. Our last class ended on Saturday, and there were 3 women out of 8 students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, I think you're right. It might not have been as noticed if it wasn't a female teaching the class, seeing, and being able to recognize that as a thing. Have you had any challenges ever with being the instructor as a female and potentially instructing classes of all men?
It's I don't know. I haven't had any problems necessarily. I do, because of my age, I think I get a lot of like, almost like it's cute that you do this kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm like teaching a lesson, it's like the laughter and the feedback I get is like, oh, it's cute that she knows that. I'm like, what? But I don't like it's, I'd rather that than them like ignore me or be rude
right.
you know.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What would you say is the average age of the people coming through taking a class?
Our demographic is easily 90% white males over 50, probably. I'd say that in the past 5 years or so, we're seeing a lot more younger people who have had tech jobs and they just want to do something with their hands. Because our classes they're 6 days, so it's a time investment, but it's not like a full-on program, so you don't have to like dedicate months of your life. So yeah, it's changed a lot in the past few years, the demographic, but our bread and butter is definitely your traditional white older male woodworker.
Somebody who's probably looking at it more as like upping their hobby game.
Yeah.
Or going into what are they going to do once they get into retirement type of thing.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
And so I asked that because then that's the demographic I would expect to give you that, oh, it's cute that you know that type of response, right?
Yeah.
It was similar when I took classes as part of a program at a community college when living in California, and the program actually had to shut down because people who were taking it were either retired or about to be retired, older white gentlemen who had no interest in getting a degree. They were just taking these classes to like increase their knowledge for what they were going to build like at home, or what Christmas present were they going to build, make for their family that year. And because nobody was actually like graduating, like the program had to shut down.
That's a bummer.
It is a bummer because it was a really, really good program. But I had received similar reactions sometimes with some of the gentlemen that I was taking classes with of like, that's cute that you think you can do that, like, type thing. Yeah. And not necessarily a bad way. It was like, they would interject themselves as like a grandfatherly figure type
That's
of
exactly
thing.
What it's like. Yeah. So it's intended to be like encouragement.
Right.
But is read as like, just like a little condescending.
Yes. Just a little. Well, I mean, you have the experience of do you and Rob co-teach classes?
Yeah. We tag team basically the bulk. Our practical woodworking class is the one we run the most often. And Jeff still teaches the first day because he wants to, like, he has a few health issues. So he can't be around as much as he would like. And he really, I think, takes that first day as an exciting chance to like interact with people and like be on his feet. And so he teaches the first day, and then me and Rob tag team basically half and half for the lessons for the rest of the week. And then our advanced classes, me and Rob designed most of them, like the classes themselves. So we teach those together too.
Okay. So I ask because then you have a unique perspective of being able to directly contrast the reactions from you teaching something versus Rob teaching something.
That's true. Yeah.
And the reactions from the students. I would say you probably notice, like you said, just that a tone thing that's meant to be like encouraging, but can come off as a little bit not sometimes. I would assume that they don't talk to Rob that way.
No. But it's interesting because Rob picks up on it a lot. So then at the end of the day, he'll be like, can you believe that person said that? And I'm like, yeah, man, because it happens all the time. but
I'm glad that he's that aware.
Oh, he is. I'm very grateful that like having a male collaborator and like co-business owner, he is the first to push me out in front and be like, Larissa knows more about this than I do, so listen to her. And he tells people all the time, like he'll call me over to help lift something, and they'll offer to step in, and he's like, no, Larissa's never not been able to pick something up this time.
Right.
So he's a great co-business owner and general business partner.
So I want to ask, given that at least you're near Philly, right? Is the school and the shop is near Philly?
Yeah, it's like 30 miles outside.
Okay. So given the demographics of Philly, as far as population wise, do you see any trickle of that representation as far as, Black and brown people starting to show up for classes?
A little bit. I wish more. We've been talking about this, for the past like 3 or 4 years, trying to figure out like a scholarship, like a way to offer a scholarship. But our issue is that we don't have the reach. We have 2,000 followers on the internet. Like, I don't know how to get a scholarship to our school in front of people yet. But we've been actively like planning that and trying to form relationships with places in Philly, like the Center for Art and Wood, and like organizations inside Philly, so that when we get our ducks in a row, we can say like, tell everybody that this is here, because we want our doors to be open to anyone who's interested at any point, and we can make it work. And it's true, even without a scholarship, if you were to come to us and say, I want to pay in installments for the next 12 months, I would say, great, let's do it.
Right.
Whatever gets you in these doors and like using tools, let's do it.
Have you guys, do you guys have pieces in the center for art and wood?
We had boxes in their bandsaw box auction last month. I guess it just wrapped up like a week ago. But we don't have any like pieces in the museum as of yet.
Okay.
But we have a really good relationship with them over there, so we're constantly in contact.
Did you participate? I don't remember this, so that's why I'm asking. Did you participate in making a seat at the table?
I applied, was not selected. However, I went to the opening, and it was the same night as the Philly Furniture Show that year. They had like a opening night party or something. And I said to Rob, listen, I have to go witness history, so you're going to have to man the booth because I cannot miss it. So I abandoned our booth, and I was at the opening, and it was like the most incredible.
Awesome. Did you get to spend time with Laura at all, Laura Mays?
I met her. We all went out after the show, and I met her, I think, for the first time there. And I just like try not to fangirl out. I'm like meeting all of these incredible people that I just admire so much. I'm like, keep it together, be cool, like chill out.
Yeah. I could see that. I've had Laura was on the podcast, and
I listened. I listened.
And I fangirled a little bit, on the inside. Same thing, same monologue going on the inside. Yes. So that's awesome that you got to go there for the opening night. And I hope that they get to have another show at some point in time.
I agree.
I think that's something that they both would love to do again, but it's a lot of work.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It sounds, when I was talking to them briefly, it sounded like they both threw all of themselves into it for a long period of time. And then the book, I imagine, is taking up crazy amounts of energy.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that you have already, you're starting to try to figure out how to do scholarships and get more people in through the door. Is that what you feel is like the biggest barrier, is cost?
I think it's a large barrier. I think it's also like coming to realize that like, even if you do take our 6-day class and you learn how to use all these tools, like what happens next? So we don't have enough space to like rent out shop space to people
Right.
who want to use it. And it's not realistic for people to come out from Philly, although I do it every day. It's not realistic for most people
Right.
to make that trip. So I guess it's like, how do we make woodworking accessible on like a grander scale so they can come learn from places like us, and then they have a place to go to like practice and hone those skills. And that's where community maker spaces become like super critical. Yeah.
I was going to say, I would assume Philly being so large, they've got to have at least one, if not more.
Yeah, there's a couple
spaces. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you done any partnering with them at all?
Not yet. We recommend the ones that are around, like it's like a gym, but a wood shop. Go do it. So I know that like Philadelphia Woodworks and Next Fab are both phenomenal places and like super well equipped. And I've heard really good things from our students who have come back and told us. But we haven't formed any partnerships as of yet. Although that's also something I hope for as we expand, everything.
Yeah. How do you start planning for, I mean, Jeff built up a business in a certain way, but it sounds like you and Rob have perhaps a different vision for it going forward.
Well, I think Jeff's vision was he built a business that he wanted to, knowing that he wanted to hand it off at some point so that he could retire like lots of makers can't, because you don't make enough money to retire. So the idea was that this business would carry on, and he's encouraged us to do anything that we like can think of. So we've expanded our class options. We gave ourselves a logo for the first time in the history of the business, and we're trying to do the scholarship, and we're donating pieces to raffles and just trying to get like this functioning business more out so that we can be part of a community instead of isolated to our little farmland.
Well, you mentioned though too, like you said with the shows, you've gotten to become friends with other craftspeople, right? Is there synergy there to broaden that community and make it more?
Yeah, I think so. Every time that we talk to people in our area, everyone is always stoked. Like, what can we do together? Like, how can we create something together? So I think the want is there. It's just a matter of maybe like post-COVID when we all have living wages and like what can we dream up? Because I feel like anything is possible. And Philadelphia is notorious for being like a craft hub. So I think that the platform is there, the space is there, the want is there. We just have to pursue any collaborations, any dreams we can think of.
Yeah, with my job, I did get to go to Philly once, and I will say I want to make sure I can go back again because there's so much history there, right? History and craft and the whole East Coast, really. There's just so much there. The start of the country, the start of a lot of things. What kind of to circle back, like, what took you to Philly from Massachusetts to Florida to Philly?
Honestly, it was me being in a place that I didn't want to be, and feeling like very stuck. The guy that I was dating at the time had friends in Philly, so we came up to visit and like crash on couches, and I was like, I can afford rent here. There are things happening here. Let's go. And I never I didn't plan on it being my forever home. I didn't not plan on that. It was just kind of like a move forward.
Right.
But since I love Philly so much, and I love my business, and now I've found a partner, and I'll be here for the foreseeable future. And it was all just completely a need to do something somewhere else.
Awesome. Well, we're actually like at the end of our time together.
Whoa.
I know. Went fast, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I want to give you a chance though to shout out and let everybody know like where they can follow along with you at.
Um, I all the fun stuff is under the Lohr Woodworking name right now. So we're at Lohr Woodworking on Instagram and Facebook. We also have that website, and then I have a personal account, Larissa Huff, where you can see the things that I make off the side and my weird life photos.
Nothing weird about them. That's how I found you.
Great, great.
um, yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing all of this for everyone.
You're welcome. And I always say, it's totally selfish. It allows me to reach out to people and have an excuse to talk to me.
It sounds awesome. It was a good move. Well done.
That's right. I had to take it before anybody else did. Otherwise, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't work for me.
There you go.
All right. So again, that was Larissa of Lohr Woodworking in the Philadelphia area. I'll include links on how you can follow along with her in the show notes, which you can find at freemanfurnishings.com. You can also check out the description on your podcast app or down below on YouTube to follow along with her. If you are really enjoying the podcast, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button on whatever app you are either listening or watching this interview on. And head on over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment down below on YouTube. All of that helps the algorithms know that this is a podcast that not only you like, but others may like as well. Please, please, please make sure you follow along with the Maker Mom podcast over on Instagram. That is just at Maker Mom Podcast. Share about your favorite episode, what maker you're really loving learning more about. Make sure you tag Maker Mom Podcast in your stories or in your feed when you do those shares. I love seeing them, and I'll make sure to share them out as well. If you want to learn more about joining the tribe over on Patreon, just head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Maker Mom Podcast, and check out all the different tier availabilities over there. There is a $1, $3, $5, and $30 tier level. All of the tiers get you access to any additional content, which will include live interviews, access to live interviews as they are going on Zoom, which will give you access to be able to ask all of these awesome makers questions at the end of the interview. We've had one so far, and there will be more to come. I promise you that. The $1, $3, $5 tier levels come with different merchandise depending on what level you choose. The $30 a month tier level makes you an official sponsor of the podcast, which means you get your very own ad spot in every episode, every week, all month long. Those are very limited spots. In fact, I only have one left. So if you are interested in that, I would jump on that sooner rather than later. And lastly, I did get some new podcast swag up and available for both the Maker Mom podcast as a whole and the Friday episodes where I'm interviewing parents, and then the Wonder Women series, the logo that goes along with that. So there's new swag available. Please go check that out. You can find the link to that over at Maker Mom Podcast on Instagram. So check out the link in the bio over at Maker Mom Podcast on Instagram to get your swag. Christmas is coming up. There's still plenty of time to get that stuff ordered. There's teas, there's face masks, there's coffee mugs. What else are there? There's all kinds of stuff. So go check it out. And when I am not interviewing and editing to make podcast episodes, you can find me designing and making furniture and other home decor over at freemanfurnishings.com. And you can look for me at Freeman Furnishings pretty much across all social media. So TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm most active most often over at TikTok and Instagram. That's where I kind of keep things most up to date for what projects I'm working on currently, what crazy things I happen to be power carving that week, and then over at YouTube as well. All right, so it is middle of the week. It is the day before Thanksgiving here in the States. So I hope all of you, if you are traveling, please stay safe, please stay healthy. We don't need any more people getting sick in this country than already are. So please keep that in mind, and I will see you all on Friday.